But let me talk a little bit about the version of the Grail story that Perry tells Jack. Because are we or are we not an Arthurian podcast?
Geez. I didn't have time to prepare for this. I don't know.
Anyway, so Perry tells him his own version of the Grail story, and the idea is that like he knows this because this is he in his former life he was a professor, so he taught this type of stuff. The version he tells is that there is a young man who is going to become a king, and he has a vision of the Holy Grail, and he goes to reach out and grab the Grail, and he ends up burning his hand because frankly he's not ready to have the Holy Grail. And so this is how he becomes the maimed king. The maimed king is the Fisher King. Okay. Now in the traditional Arthurian story, I guess originating with Robert de Boron, actually he is wounded not in the hand but in the thigh. And so it's sort of like a symbolic castration.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that, the screenwriter said the hand, because the idea of a king losing a hand is also mythologically relevant. You have the story of Nuda of the silver hand, and Tyr, who has his hand bitten off by the wolf, and I guess it's Numa, the second king of Rome, who loses a hand in a fire. So like there are all these other versions of losing a hand instead. That so that works actually mythologically.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think it's
kosher.
I don't think you could ever call a Grail story kosher. I have a feeling that's really not how it works, hon. Definitely not. But so the idea is he is a maimed king, and so now that the king is maimed, he's in Perry's telling of it is he kind of wants to be able to get the Grail and he can't, and he wants to be healed and he can't be healed, and finally a fool comes along and says, "What can I do for you?" He says, "I'm thirsty. Please bring me something to drink." And so the fool goes and brings him a cup of water, and when he hands the king the cup, it is the Grail, and he drinks of it and he's healed. Now, that's not exactly the story in the medieval version that descends from either Robert de Boron or Chrétien de Troyes. I don't care. No, I don't care, because that's as legitimate a version of the Grail story as anything else. No two stories are exactly the same.
So how do those stories end?
Well, that's the thing. They don't. Chrétien de Troyes died in the middle of writing his story. It's just like in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. He died while carving it. So we don't know how he would have ended the story. We have no idea what would have happened. Now, Robert de Boron, his actual poem, we only have the first one, The History of the Grail, and part of the second one, Merlin. The rest is missing. What we have is a prose version, which we think is probably what his text was, written in prose. And so we have a version called the Dido manuscript Percival. And that actually has an ending where Percival, he doesn't answer the question correctly the first time, goes off, has more adventures, comes back, and answers the question the correct way the second time, and then the Fisher King is healed, and then Percival gets to be the Fisher King. All right. And that's like kind of the typical, there are different people who wrote different continuations of the Grail story. There's a whole bunch of people, because he died while writing it, everybody's like, wait a minute, I can come up with a better version.
So what I'm getting from you is that you appreciate the spirit of this one because it captures the spirit of the ending or of the story.
Yeah.
It's you suffer, you make mistakes, and you come back and you do the right thing, and everything's healed.
Yeah.
And so your problem with the Green Knight is that it gets so many things right, but it's the end game is all wrong.
Yes.
It misses the point.
Yes. Absolutely.
So this movie gets the point where that movie didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't want to relegate the Green Knight, but that's exactly correct.
You're not concerned with specifics.
Right.
But you do want them to at least get the point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You can have whatever variations you want, but as long as it's not just nihilism. And what I don't like about the end of the Green Knight is it feels like nihilism. Right? Now, That's my interpretation of it. There are people who have other interpretations of it. Maybe they're right and maybe I'm wrong, but I still feel like that has a nihilistic ending, and it misses the point of not just Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, but of that type of story. All right. This, I don't care that this version of the Grail myth is slightly different, because it gets a couple things right. One, you have a maimed king. Two, you have a fool. And three, the fool heals the king. All right? And the fool heals the king because he asks a question.
So wait, who is Jeff Bridges, or is Jack the maimed king?
Well, that's an interesting question.
Because it seems like it kind of gets passed back and forth in a way.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And I think that's fine. I think that works. You don't have to have a rigid who is the fool and who is the king. Because, and this is where the film is actually kind of like a psychological story, we are both those things. Everyone is a fool, but everyone is also the maimed king, right? We both have that capacity inside of us. Yeah. We're all wounded. We're also all fools. I am the fool to your maimed king, and you are the fool to my maimed king. That's kind of the relationship you have to have with other people of, I am the fool to you, which means I ask the questions that you need, right?
But Perry's name is Perry. He can't be the king.
But he is, in the sense that he is the wounded king, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you were just messing with me.
Yeah. All right. Not really. I'm just...
No, but I love this. I love this insight from you.
Yeah.
You know, that they're both that in these roles, you know? And so, but I think that works on a psychological level.